days away from
Yes,
opening day. Are you excited?
I know. Actually, no, because the Angels are not.
Their home opening day.
Their home
It's like
opening day is
a week and a
after.
half. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
they start on the road because I have opening day in the notes, which we will get to
Yeah.
when we get to the sports corner.
I knew before you knew.
Huh?
I knew before you knew that
What?
you were gonna get those.
Now I was gonna get those tickets.
Yeah.
Oh, because she
I was
asked
so
you.
excited for you. No, she didn't ask. She told me. She was like, "This is what I'm doing," and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so cool. He's going to love it."
Yes. All right. Let's get go here.
Let's go.
And welcome back to another episode of the Media Boat Podcast, your weekly episodes on movies, TV, music, and video games, not necessarily in that order. My name is Mike. His name is Matt.
My name is Matt. His name is Mike. Thank you for joining us. Today is March 25th, 2023. This is episode 376, I believe.
Yep.
376 trombones.
Yes, 376.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. We have all of that and more, plenty to talk about with television, video games, music, and movies, not in that order. And we always start it by starting with the music.
Yep. We start the music section with the Billboard, and we start the Billboards with the Hot 100. And look who's back on top.
Yes.
Miley Cyrus with Flowers. Once again, your number one song.
Yep.
Looking to be the song of the summer?
I mean, a little early to call.
A little early. It's still in March.
We'll get there.
All right.
I'm sure the song of the summer is yet to come.
At 2, Last Night by Morgan Wallen.
At least he's not number one this week. We'll take it. We'll take that win.
We'll take the knocking down a peg, a slot.
A whole pig.
A whole slot. At 3, Kill Bill by SZA.
Mm-hmm.
At 4, Die For You by The Weeknd and Ariana Grande.
Yep.
And back in the top 5, Creepin' by Metro Boomin.
Yep.
And The Weeknd and 21 Savage.
So yeah, Ice Spice down a spot at number 6 this week out of the top 5.
All right. As for your album chart, your Billboard 200, at number 1, One Thing at a Time by Morgan Wallen. At number 2, Ready to Be, 12th mini album by Twice.
Christy and I watched a clip of Twice on the Kelly Clarkson show. They were getting interviewed. And apparently the fans of Twice are strangely named Once.
Because they are Twice?
Yes, they're Twice. Their fans are Once. So when they refer to their fans, they're like, just like how BTS calls them the Army.
Yes.
It's like, oh yeah, we love to play our shows for once. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
No,
it's a dumb... Come on, Twice. You can come up with a better fan name. Just saying. Does Blackpink have a name for their fans?
The BPs?
The Blinks? Blinks, that's right.
Blinks.
That's right, they do. And I think they're called Blinks.
Just to smash Blackpink together to Blinks.
Although that just confuses me from Blink 182 fans. Probably also call themselves that.
And the Xbox game Blinks with the cat.
Blinks the Time Sweeper, yes. Good callback. Anyways, at number 3, Endless Summer Vacation by Miley Cyrus. Yep.
Coming in at 4, SOS by SZA.
Yep.
And rounding out your top 5, Mañana Será Bonito by Karol G.
So yeah, just a little bit of a scramble with Twice entering the top 5 here.
If you didn't like any of those albums, we have new releases.
Yay!
Starting with The Record by Boy Genius.
I will be listening to this.
We also have The Love Still Held Me Near by City and Color. Miracle-Level by Dear Hoof.
Mm-hmm.
Me by Jisoo.
Speaking of Blackpink, this is a solo record from Jisoo of Blackpink.
Mm-hmm. There's also Crispy Crunchy Nothing.
Delicious.
By Pax.
Mm-hmm.
That is Packs.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Hacks.
PAX
in video game.
like next week, right?
Yes.
That's funny.
Stowaway by Samian.
Samian?
Samian. The Price of Progress by The Hold Steady. And lastly, Continue as Guest by The New Pornographers.
Yeah, it's a good name. Continue as Guest. It's funny. Anyways,
let's get into some music news, and we start with a sabbatical.
Well, sort of.
So the American Music Awards are likely to take a 1-year sabbatical following news announcing that Billboard Music Awards would move its date to November 19th of this year. Typically a Sunday held for the AMAs.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem to leave parent company Dick Clark Productions no choice but to bump the AMAs to next year, 2024, when it can take the May slot previously held by the Billboards. So multiple sources say that neither has secured a broadcast partner, and producer Dick Clark Productions, which is owned by Penske Media Corp., who is the owner of where this news story comes from.
Yeah, they legally have to
tell you
that they own Variety and also Billboard.
Yes. But not us.
Yes, no.
Yes.
No one owns us.
No. Penske Media Corp had to make the decision of which show to throw its weight behind.
Yeah.
Since Penske Media Corp owns the publication of Billboard, insiders suggest that the thinking was to promote its own brand. Chatter amongst music industry professionals is that the AMAs, which launched in 1973, has become stale.
And you know what? They're right.
Yes.
No one cares about the AMAs. I feel like the AMAs have always been an imitator ever since they debuted. It was literally Dick Clark's production company for ABC at the time being like, we don't have the Grammys. Let's make our own Grammys. And so they literally invented the AMAs as a Grammys equivalent or like a competitor.
Weren't the AMAs created out of American Bandstand?
It was related because that was also a Dick Clark Productions production.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was supposed to be a way for the ABC to basically have their own big night of music awards. And so, yeah, they're just not relevant anymore. No one talks about the AMAs when they're happening. They're just like another bullet point on your awards section of your Wikipedia page at this point.
They're the Golden Globes.
Yeah, they are the Golden Globes of music. You're 100% right. So this makes more sense because in recent years, I feel like there's been more heat behind the Billboard Awards, and Billboard name definitely has more cachet now than the AMAs. I think that what they should do is just retire the AMAs as a brand and just rely on, and ABC should just be like, commit to having the Billboard Music Awards every year and then just make that their brand and just be like, no, this is what we are now. This is the other big award show for music. I think they have a better chance of doing that with the Billboard name than they ever had with the AMAs these days.
Well, it's also because the Billboard name is a global name. They have the Latin Billboard Music Awards as well.
And the Billboard charts still matter, is the thing. Is people still care if you're number one on the Billboard charts. So that name holds weight in a way that the AMAs hasn't in decades.
Who votes in the AMAs?
I'm actually not sure. I want to say it's a People's Choice Awards equivalent. Okay. I'm not sure though. I don't know if that's the Billboard. Billboard, I think, is a combination. I think some are fan voted, but I believe that some are industry voted. I'm not 100% sure. Because the thing about Billboard is that they still have a very important, if you're in the industry, periodical that and a member you are a member of that by subscribing. And so it's kind of like Variety in a way. And so it's like where it makes sense. They would already have a built-in voter base there. And it does make it sound like it's more legit than the AMAs. So, I don't know. I think this is a good move.
Well, the AMAs, I feel like, are more like the CMAs. Yeah. Does anybody care about the CMAs?
No, I think CMAs still matter. I think that it's country's biggest night.
What's that country's biggest night?
That's country's biggest night.
I'm thinking of the other one then.
You're thinking of the ACMs.
That's what I'm thinking of, the ACMs.
Yeah, the CMAs, I think, are the ones that people still care about. The ACMs are the ones that also happen. Anyways, and then there's the CMT Awards, which also happen.
Yes, but no one cares about the CMTs.
No, that's not country's biggest night.
No. All right, so we'll keep an eye out as it comes closer to November.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to reserve this time slot way ahead of time.
Also, it's very funny. It's very funny that they're like, oh, we haven't made a broadcast partner. It's going to be ABC. Actually, well, I don't think the Billboard Music Awards have aired there before. I want to say Billboard usually shows up on Fox, or it has in the past. Yes. I was trying to differentiate that from the iHeart Radio Awards, which are CW usually.
Because CW also does the iHeart music
festival. Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're getting into the weeds. But yeah, just we'll keep an eye on this.
Yes. I guess this was part TV news.
Yeah, it is.
Part TV news.
Either way.
Anyways,
Slow week.
So let's go into our time machine and go back in time to February of last year for our second story. And if you remember, back in February of last year, and more like the last 2 years, Joe Rogan on Spotify was broiled around a lot of controversy due to his racially charged language and COVID-related misinformation on multiple editions of his Spotify podcast. Well, the streaming giant's CEO attempted to defuse the situation by apologizing to his aggravated staff and, at the time, had pledged $100 million, quote, for the licensing, development, and marketing of music, artists and songwriters, and audio content from historically marginalized groups. So that happened last February.
Yes.
Here we are, 14 months later, and of that $100 million creator equity fund, less than 10% of it has been spent funding that work.
Oof.
The initiative was behind schedule in hiring an 8-person staff to oversee the project and has suffered from shifting priorities. A report goes on to say that the unnamed people familiar with the effort from the beginning of this year stated that the fund had not been completed of its 2023 budget and had not determined its priority projects. According to a memo, the publication said it had obtained, and another fund intended to promote diversity in podcasts suffered after that business was hit by layoffs last year. So of that $100 million, less than $10 million has actually gone to artists and songwriters and content.
It's like, come on, like that's a lot of money that's just sitting there that you can use to do these promotions and create this content. And you guys can't even figure out the 8-person panel to make these decisions. Like, oh, priorities keep shifting. The priority is literally written into the statement that your CEO made when this $100 million was allocated. Like, you know what the priority is. Just get it done. It's obnoxious. It's like Spotify just seems like a total mess.
For me, this reads more of a time frame issue where the CEO pledges $100 million, but doesn't give a time frame of how long that $100 million is going to last. Like, it's $100 million over 10 years or over 20 years.
But clearly more should have been spent at this point. Like a whole year, and they can't even figure out a place to focus.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I see this a lot during college football, where you see Allstate has supported over $100 million in scholarships, but in the fine print, it's since 2002. Over 20 years, they've helped $100 million.
Yeah.
So that's like $5 million a year, roughly.
Which is not nothing, but yeah, it's definitely different than the total.
Because the total number is a good number. $100 million. That's a good number. That's a good promise of a number.
Yeah.
But when you stretch it out over 10 years, you're like, oh, so you're really not giving a whole lot each year.
Right. I mean, yeah, this stuff is just frustrating because like the company seems to do this a lot. It's actually very telling that part of this story mentions the fact that their podcast service had a lot of layoffs over the last year, which is part of why that effort hasn't gone anywhere. It just shows you that even when people were talking about like, oh, Spotify's getting into podcasting, they're going to put a bunch of resources into podcasts. Well, of course that ended up fizzling out because people don't come to Spotify for that. And I think they're finally realizing that. So of course, that's why everything's chaos over there, because they say they're going to do one thing and then it doesn't pan out and they have to figure out the next thing that they want to do. It's just a company that's never felt solid to me. It's a company that's always felt like they're running around with no idea how to do things because they were the first and they have to establish precedent and they don't know how. It's
also want to establish precedent and piss off a bunch of people too.
Right, and that's all they do. Every time they announce something new, it's like, wait, what? Why? So, yeah, I guess we'll keep an eye on this, but like, yeah, for now, it's just embarrassing.
Well, that's just the whole point of Spotify. It's just been embarrassing for since COVID, pre-COVID.
Oh, before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
Okay, so let's get into something even more ridiculous.
Yeah, we listened to a couple of records. Actually, did you listen to either of these?
I started listening to the Fall Out Boy record.
Okay, well, let's start there then.
Okay.
How far did you get in?
4 or 5 songs.
Okay, so you got in far enough to realize probably what I've realized 4 or 5 songs into this thing, which was, hey, wait a minute. I thought this was supposed to be a return to form.
I was very confused when it started off with the orchestra.
Yeah.
And then it got very bombastic. I was like, oh, is this Fall Out Boy? Or is this Panic at the Disco?
So let's rewind the tape a little bit. So this album, this new Fall Out Boy album, So Much for Stardust.
Yes.
This is their first since their debut back on Fueled by Ramen, storied emo / pop punk label that is home to artists that we love, such as Paramore.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was, and all the promotions seemed to suggest, that they wanted this to be a return to their earlier sound, when Fall Out Boy was the most popular, like their more emo-tinged pop punk era. Think like, their big hits, like Dance Dance, This Ain't a Scene, It's an Arms Race, etc. Like that was supposed to harken back to this era of Fall Out Boy, right? So, and surely enough, the single, which is the first song on the record, seemed to suggest that. I don't hate it. I think it's all right. It's the guitars have been moved to the front of the mix. Like it seems like they're trying to write the kind of songs that they used to write. Then the album continues. And for me, that whole suggestion starts to dissolve. As the record goes on, it becomes more apparent to me. It's like, oh, all they really did was mess with the production a little bit more. The actual songs and construction here and the lyrics are more modern Fall Out Boy. And it fails to make me think of that earlier material just because those things don't match. Those things feel weird, juxtaposed next to each other. They're still writing pop songs. I hate to break it to people. At least they're not all weirdly based on existing songs, like that one record includes like single Uma Thurman. Like they had an era there where they were just writing songs that were other songs, and I really was just like, I don't get what they're doing. At least they're not doing that anymore. But I still just didn't get what they were going for. I feel like it was a little bit of a, I don't know, not a trick, but just that. But it felt a little bit to me like you said you were going to do one thing and you didn't do it. Like some of it's okay. There's some moments, like you said, the orchestral approach does evoke some of the stuff that they did with strings on their early records. And yes, the guitars sound better, if not great. I still think they need to be a little heavier in order to have the oomph that they want it to have. It still feels a little overproduced and a little too shiny. It feels a little too like pristine to sound like the kind of music that they used to make. And so it all comes across, the whole record comes across to me as like an attempt to recapture hearts and minds, but too much of the same, too much of what they've been doing recently.
So too much new and not enough what they were promoting, which is return to form.
I think if you want to, promote your record as a return to form, you have to commit to it and you have to believe it. And I didn't believe that that's what they were actually doing here. Throughout the record, I just was thinking, this is just too much of that modern pop thing that they've been doing as opposed to a pop punk record. It's not that. I feel like the contrast here is that Avril Lavigne thing she put out. Avril Lavigne put out an actual pop punk record last year. And I think it surprised people, including me, because that's not even something she used to do in her peak of celebrity. Those were pop records disguised as pop punk records. This was an actual pop punk record. And I feel like it confused a lot of people. It was like, wait, what? She can do that? This is not that. This is the opposite of that. This is a band saying, no, we're going to go back to this. And they didn't. They didn't commit.
I didn't. After that first song, you're right. It did lose me. That's why I didn't finish the album.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It did grab me.
One thing that I will note about it, though, is that some of the lyrics on some of the songs do seem to be coming from a genuine place. It does seem that like singer Patrick Stump is actually talking about some actual lived experience and how he feels about being a like a modern music celebrity. And some of that is interesting, but again, the production just betrays it. The production sounds too shiny and poppy for me to believe what he's saying is genuine. It all feels very manufactured, and that's unfortunate. It means that the whole idea doesn't really click. But I don't know. That's my opinion. I would really interested to hear the opinion of somebody who loved Fall Out Boy back then. To see if they would like 1-to-1 comparison what they think, judged by their nostalgia. Because I was not that person, so.
I wasn't fully that person either.
I think I'll ask Christy. She was that person.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's okay, but it's definitely not what I thought it was going to be.
All right. Now let's talk to me about Long Beach.
Yeah, I live there. What do you want to know? What do you want to
know? Is Lana Del Rey there? And is she true? Is it true that there is a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard?
So I've never seen her there, to answer question 1. And answer question 2, yes, there is. So I actually read up on this. There was a story that a local Long Beach site put up in 2018 that described what it was. So basically, there was a tunnel that you could take from downtown to the beach. And literally under Ocean Boulevard. You would take it, like, it walk down, just a pedestrian tunnel. And they had made it look all fancy, too. They had, like, tile on the, like, mosaic tile on the walls and ceiling. And it's been sealed for decades. And with the argument that like they just didn't need to do it anymore because it was constructed because there was a specific crosswalk that was always crowded. There like 4,000 people a day would cross this intersection, and people driving were like, "This sucks," and so they ended up getting rid of the tunnel once that stopped being an issue. Once there were fewer pedestrians in downtown Long Beach.
Now there's more cars than pedestrians.
Now there's more cars, exactly. And so that's what happened. And that's, you don't need the tunnel anymore, but it's still there. Just the opening's not there. So you can't get in, but it's still there. And I do believe that there are some walking tours that I think have occurred where some people have been able to go down there and take pictures. Anyway, this is all to say that is the name of both the album and one of the songs on the new Lana Del Rey record. And I have mixed thoughts about this one. I've been up and down with Lana. I really liked her 2019 record, Norman fucking Rockwell. We talked about it on this record, on this podcast, that I did actually appreciate it. It was the first time I was like, okay, she sounds genuine here. She sounds like she's writing about like real issues that she's had. She's the arrangement and the production by Jack Antonoff was really good. And there was also, she was playing around with sounds a lot. Like there was some genre variation on it that I appreciated. Since then, the last 2 records haven't done it for me. She put out 2 since then, Chemicals Over the Country Club and Blue Banisters. And both kind of bored me. It was too much of the orchestral ballad Lana and not enough of her personality. It just felt very bland, very white bread. Here, she seems to have listened to that commentary and is reacting to it. And this does serve in a lot of ways as a sequel record to Norman fucking Rockwell. It's similar in structure. It's similar in expansiveness. And it's similar in that it literally calls back to several of the songs from that record. And the last song is kind of a hip hop remix in a way of one of the songs from that record, Venice Bitch. So she's very clearly trying to harken back to that critical peak. And yes, it's because some of that does come across to me as a little like, come on, Lana. Yes, we get it. This was the one time people were talking positively about you, so you want to live there again. I understand. It also feels a little too soon to be nostalgic for 3 years ago, but whatever. I get why she's doing it. But the rest of the record is actually more interesting than that. It's a very personal record this time. From the jump, she has a song called The Grants, and that's key because her real last name is Grant. Her name is Elizabeth Grant. And so it's about her family. And that theme continues to the record. There's a lot of references to her family and specifically loss, about like family members that have died. Her own thoughts about her own death. whether she's afraid of that, her also about children, about having children, about her family members that have had kids. It's a very personal record with some very personal lyrics, and it does try some genre experimentation. The first half is very much those orchestral ballads, and then the second half goes into the kind of hip hop inspired trap beat kind of stuff that she did early on in her career. It's a good synthesis of those two things, and it kind of gradually swaps into that zone as opposed to feeling like a back and forth kind of jarring thing that she could have done. And so that's kind of nice. But at the same time, nothing really hit me with that moment like stuff on Norman fucking Rockwell did. It doesn't quite get to those heights for me. Some of it is very impressive. One highlight is the 7-minute long A&W, which is, I believe, I don't want to steal this because I think it's really clever. So I will give credit to the who wrote this. In the review on Stereogum, they mentioned that the song is kind of like a microcosm of the entire record, because whereas the record kind of drifts from ballad to like kind of trip hop, so does A&W. Like it's half and half. It turns into a different song in the back end of it, and it's interesting approach. It's thematically structured to do that as well, lyrically, because the beginning is more like this, almost like a treatise about her life, kind of like how we were talking about on the Taylor Swift March Madness podcast you can listen to right now in part 4 this week, about how You're on Your Own, Kid is almost like a study of like all the different eras of Taylor's career. Lana kind of does this here, except more detached, where she talks about different women's experience that reflect her own in different like stages of her life, like as a kid, or and as like a teenager, and then as an adult. And but because it's Lana, it's all through the lens of kind of like, oh, everybody's always hated me because of these things. Like A&W, big surprise, is not the restaurant or the drink. It stands for American Whore. And so it's kind of like that's how she thinks that she's pictured and how women are pictured. It's all in that kind of frame that she's like saying like, oh, well, it's never going to get better because that's always how we're viewed. It's dark, it's cynical, and then it swaps, like I said, in that kind of in a like a hip hop kind of variation towards the end. So yeah, that's the most probably interesting thing on the record. The rest of it doesn't quite reach there. And there's some unfortunate choices she makes with some interludes. There's one where that's basically just a recording of a famous, I believe, LA-based pastor who has been recently under fire for some homophobic statements that he's made. Spends a lot of weirdly a long time just listening to this pastor preach in a really weird, grainy recording. I'm not really sure what she's going for there. I've seen a couple of takes on it. Some people think it's ironic that she's trying to like say like, oh, I don't actually believe what this guy is saying here. Because at the end, there's basically, he makes some sort of statement about like, oh, all this time preaching, I realized I was never preaching about God. I was preaching about myself. And I think so people are saying like, no, it's ironic. You're supposed to listen to that line. And that's basically Lana saying like, look at this guy. Look, he's saying nonsense. But then there's other reads that seem to, like the Pitchfork review, for example, points out that she's attended his services before, which makes me think, it's like, okay, Lana, what do you actually think about this guy? Is this genuine or is this ironic? Which has always been my problem with Lana. Just as it likes the whole thing, it's like she's so hard to read. I don't know what she actually believes. I don't know how much of this is actually accurate. Which brings us back to some of the controversy over the last couple of album cycles. Her statements about what she thinks about femininity, about what she thinks of feminism, what she thinks about inclusion. There's, of course, people talking about like that cover of Chemicals Over the Country Club, me like, do you have any black friends? And like stuff like that. And how all her statements have been very defensive, and she's not really apologized for any of it. Or things that she has done did in the COVID era, like showing up with like a mesh mask to meet fans, and then having fans be like, I don't want to get near her. She's literally not wearing anything that protects her. Mm-hmm. She's having a lot, and she again doubles down on all this shit. Here, she has a line in one of the songs where she more or less says like, wouldn't it be funny if we wore masks, like as if we cared? And it's like, come on, Lana. Like, what are you doing? She is somebody who absolutely does not care about how she's viewed, which could be a positive, but it makes her art confusing for me, and it makes her art harder to grasp and appreciate, because she just puts so many barriers in front of me from getting to that point where I can absolutely just say, like, yeah, I love it. Like, I can't get there because she puts so much in the way. She's the anti-Taylor in a way, where Taylor is so curated and so careful about everything she does. Lana doesn't give a shit. And it's interesting having these two juxtaposed right now. So yeah, it's a complicated record. It's a personal record. It has some moments of real beauty. But I just can't get to the point where I'm comfortable recommending it because of just how many landmines I feel like are around the Lana camp. But it's close. It's definitely the closest she's gotten to that level since Norman fucking Rockwell. So it's definitely one of her best records. I'm just not sure how I feel about it.
So 2 passes then?
I don't know if this what I would say is a pass. I think that it's a mileage will vary for sure.
Okay.
The Fall Out Boy, yeah, I'm gonna say it's largely a pass.
All right.
Yeah, I may or may not write something up on one of these. I don't know. It depends on if I trek back into the Lana record again, if I feel like I want to. Maybe give it a second shot. But yeah, the one thing though is I definitely want to read other people's takes, because it's a fascinating text. I just don't know if it's something that I really feel comfortable with at this point. Complicated.
All right. So I didn't listen to anything specifically worth mentioning. So let's move on then.
That's
into video games.
All right.
We start with new releases.
Yes.
Big release. EA Sports PGA Tour for the PS5, Xbox Series X.
You've been looking forward to this?
I'll be getting it the following week. Yep, this is your golf.
Yep.
Tours. We also have Grimoire once more for the PS4, PS5, and Switch.
Yep.
Meet Your Maker for everything but the Switch.
Okay.
Road 96, Mile Zero for everything.
Okay.
That's your wide release. There's also Movie House - The Film Studio Tycoon for PC. I want to say this is the was it Roller Coaster Tycoon-esque?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems an interesting concept, though. Yeah. Sounds like something you'd love.
Yeah. There's also Everspace 2 for the PC. And lastly, Curse of the Sea Rats for everything but the Switch.
Yeah, kind of a weird week besides golf. It's like, I don't know what any of this stuff is.
I don't know what it is either. But we will be getting our hands on MLB The Show 23 next week.
Yes.
So we'll have our thoughts on that next week.
Indeed.
But before we get to our thoughts, let's get into some video game news, starting with Valve.
Yeah.
They have officially announced Counter-Strike 2.
What?
Ahead of game's release this summer.
What? The second Counter-Strike game?
There's only been 2.
Yeah, Go doesn't count. It never happened.
Yes. It will arrive as a free upgrade to Counter-Strike, Global Offensive.
Go.
Which is Go. Yes. If you see CSGO, it's
that's
Global Offensive. And not like Pokemon Go. So this free upgrade will allow players to bring across their inventory from the current game. Quote, Counter-Strike 2 is the largest technical leap forward in Counter-Strike's history, ensuring new features and updates for years to come. All of the game's new features will be revealed when it officially launches this summer, but the road to Counter-Strike 2 begins today. This week. As a limited test for select CSGO players. During this testing period, we'll be evaluating a subset of features to shake out any issues before the worldwide release, according to Valve.
This is a big deal. People are diehards about Counter-Strike. They always have been, ever since the first one came out. Go was a similar kind of like shakeup where a lot of people were unsure about moving on, though it became established as the default Counter-Strike fairly quickly. And this was a big surprise, I think, for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people thought that they were going to do another like a proper sequel ever, and here it is. So what they're doing with the levels, because a lot of people were most curious about that, is there's going to be 3 kind of variants about how they're approaching it. They're either remaking the levels completely, like changing lighting and textures. They're not touching some of them at all, so the absolute classics will not be rebuilt. And then they are going to reinterpret some classics. So there'll be kind of like tiers you can do depending on your affinity for these old classic levels. Nowhere, I don't know where they're doing with Dust. Everybody loves Dust if you play Counter-Strike. So I've only played Counter-Strike once. I played Counter-Strike before Go at an internet cafe gaming place once, and I was like, what? I don't know how to play this at all. I was terrible at it. Have you ever played Counter-Strike?
No. Well, because I don't really play a lot of computer-based games.
Yeah. But yeah, people love Counter-Strike. Love Counter-Strike, so this will be really interesting.
There's a lot of internet hype when it was announced because no one thought it was going to be announced.
Yeah. We'll see if the fans will follow them down this road or be obstinate and want to stay on Go. We'll see.
Well, let's see. Is Valve like Blizzard?
There's some parallels sometimes.
Well, because like when they announced Overwatch 2.
Right. Everybody was pissed.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see whether people will move on.
All right. So let's move on.
This was announced during the Game Developer Conference, which happened this past week.
Yes.
But what also was at the Game Developers Conference
was the Game Developers Choice Awards.
Yes.
So these awards took place as part of GDC 2023
yes.
at San Francisco's Moscone Convention Center.
Yes.
And once again, it was a battle between Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok as they both took home the lion's share of prizes at the 23rd annual award show. Let's see here. Each of them scooped up 3 prizes at the peer-based award show, with Elden Ring being named Game of the Year, but also won Best Design and Best Visual Arts categories. God of War Ragnarok won the Audience Award, which was voted for by the players, as well as Best Audio and Best Technology prize.
Okay.
Other winners of the night included Stray for Best Debut,
all right,
Immortality,
hell yeah,
for its Innovation Award, Pentiment for Best Narrative, and Citizen Sleeper for Social Impact.
Cool.
John Romero, who helped pioneer the FPS genre as a designer on Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein 3D, received the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes.
And the Pioneer Award was posthumously given to Mabel Addis, who was widely credited as the first female game designer for her work on 1964's The Sumerian game, an IBM 7090 resource management title for school students.
So cool to see some shout outs to some OGs there. Like, man, 1964, that goes to before a lot of people's, beliefs of what the first video games were.
Right.
So this is around really pioneering work there, which is really cool. So overall strong night. I mean, Elden Ring, of course, predictable as Game of the Year winner here.
Yes.
But yeah, good to see.
Sad to see it win yet again.
But it's good to see Stray, Immortality, and Pentiment getting shout-outs, and Citizen Sleeper, like some smaller games that really made an impact last year. Good, solid night overall. And those are cool because, as it says, they're peer-based, which means that developers are voting. And so it was really cool to see, like, basically the industry give themselves pats on the back for once. It's nice to see.
Yeah, rarely does the industry pat itself on the back.
So yeah.
All right.
Anyways,
GDC continued throughout this past week.
Yeah, there were a handful of other things happening, but those were the kind of the biggest things.
Yeah, nothing else like huge, earth-shattering video game news.
No, the days where GDC was used as a place to announce your game are far gone.
Yep.
Those are, especially with PAX happenings very soon, and then E3 being back, quote unquote,
in a couple months.
You're gonna have to wait till summer to really see some announcements.
Yeah. So let's get into a new game.
Yeah, you played a game this week.
I streamed a game.
All right, tell me about Tchia.
Yes, Tchia is a open world kind of game.
Yeah.
Where you're a little 12-year-old girl running around, climbing on everything, scooping up little trinkets and everywhere. It is a very Breath of the Wild Zelda-esque narrative where you're kind of like on your own. Like it gives you a kind of a quest narrative, but the mechanics of it of like diving, running around, jumping up, climbing stuff is based off your stamina level. A lot of it is also takes from Mario Odyssey, where you can inhabit a lot of the animals around it.
And objects,
and
too.
objects, yes. Much the same way Mario Odyssey as Mario throw the hat on everything around him in order to inhabit it.
Right.
So it's very much a combination of both of those games with a very kind of minimalistic art style. It's also island-based. It's also kind of based off of an island's tribe off the coast of Australia, between like Australia and New Zealand. So based on like real world places, but in this sort of like fantastical, you can kind of teleport into other objects, into other animals, and kind of help solve tasks and puzzles.
Yeah. So it seems like the possessions are either for transportation purposes or for puzzle solving.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's about where the kind of the fun nostalgia kind of ends about it.
Yeah, it seems very simple.
It might be a bit too simple. But that being said, even though it's simple, there's a lot to collect in this thing.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot to collect. There's a lot of places on the map to check mark, like go to all these camps, go to all these zones, go interact with these people. They'll ask you to get some stuff for you. You have to come bring it back, kind of thing.
I will say that the main story quest that you're supposed to do is not that much of an attention grabber.
The stakes are not high.
Okay, the stakes are high because you're a 12-year-old girl and your dad's been kidnapped and you have to go rescue your dad. But I don't know, for me, I don't really care about my dad right now. In the process of the game.
Yeah, sure. Yes, right.
In the process of the game, I don't really care about rescuing my dad. Because I'm just going around trying to collect everything on the island before I move on to the next thing.
Sorry. Hello? Yes? Is it Dr. Freud calling? Anyway. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Because it doesn't give you a time limit. It's basically like they set it up like, oh no, you need to do this. And then the game's like, I don't know, cruise.
No, it's like, hey, if you go collect these 3 things on this island, come back to me and we'll go on to the next thing.
No rush.
I'm like, but yeah, okay, cool. I'll go collect them after I collect everything else to kind of farm everything off this island, so I don't have to come back here.
Right. There's nothing pressing really about it. I mean, which it seems to be the vibe of this game. It seems very free form, where it's like you can do any of this in any order at your own will, just like whatever you want to do.
Well, that's what Breath of the Wild did too.
Well, I feel like Breath of the Wild, there's a little bit more stakes because there's enemies constantly attacking you while you're trying to do this shit.
Oh yeah, there are no enemies here.
There's more difficult puzzles, and also I feel like the stakes are a little high.
Well, yeah, it's all world shattering there.
Right, yeah. So, but yeah, you're right about them being like structures similarly, where it's just like, okay, here's this open world, and you can do anything anytime.
Yeah. There are enemies within the game, but they're set up like bandit camps.
Yeah.
And they don't really do anything. They don't chase you out. They just stand there, and you beat them by zapping yourself into a lantern and setting these paper enemies on fire.
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute, but that's the most combat that's in this game.
Yeah.
It seems cute. It seems relaxing. I mentioned in pre-pod that it looks like a good podcast game because you're just going from point A to point B, just grabbing stuff. And also, we should note the cultural aspect of this. This is basically based on the culture of New Caledonia.
Yes.
An island nation, and yeah, all the voice acting is done from people from that area in both French and their regional dialect. And so yeah, it's definitely, and it seems to be very steeped in that culture. So it's almost like this kind of culture introducing itself to people, which is very cool. And there's not a whole lot of games that do this. So that means, yes, you'll be reading a lot of subtitles.
Unless you speak the language.
Which, who knows? But yeah, it seems like it's a neat game that seems to be coming from a very specific place and inspired by some very cool games. And it seems like a synthesis of a couple of very specific things, and it's neat. But like you're saying, don't go in expecting a huge epic. It's a game that does a handful of things, and that's pretty much all it does.
Even a lot of stuff that you collect are trinkets and stuff to fill out your own kind of like catalog backpack,
clothes you wear,
body
accessories.
Yeah.
So it's nothing. It's not like you're like Metroidvania-ing, like finding new cool skills to do. It's not that kind of game.
No, it's not like collect all these items and we'll give you a power up or power boost.
It's not that. No. It's very simple.
Yeah.
But it looks cool, and it seems like it plays well.
It looks fun. It travels well. I do like the kind of climbing mechanic that they do have, even though you do climb up just pretty much about everything with ease and the same kind of animation.
I mean, it seems like it's a small team, relatively speaking, so it's just not ever going to be something as big as a Breath of the Wild or an Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But for a small version of that kind of concept, it's cool that they made it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Tchia.
It's available for PlayStation only,
and PC.
And PC.
But if you have PlayStation, it's on the PlayStation Extra tier.
Yes.
Free for download. So if you're already paying for that, you can just grab it.
Otherwise, I think it's $30.
It sounds right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Tchia. In the meantime, I was supposed to play some Resident Evil 4. I didn't get a copy yet, so that's going to be booted till next week. I promise I will talk about it then. Very excited. Jump into that. Also, you mentioned the show 23 out this week. That'll hit Game Pass day one, so I'll be able to try that out before we record as well.
That'll hit Game Pass on Tuesday, right?
I believe so, yes. I think if you pre-order, you have access on Monday.
Okay.
But for me, I'll have to wait. So yeah.
Yeah, mine comes... I might not be able to get mine because it comes on Friday.
So yeah, it'll be a little bit, but I'll be able to talk about it, what I played a bit. So no someone awesome, but all-star closing pitcher Matthew Johnson will be back in those bullshit. So just wait. Anyway, hopefully bringing the Angels to the playoffs and lasting more than one game, like I did last time.
Speaking of,
you got eliminated. Who did we get eliminated by? It was probably the Astros.
Probably the Astros.
Anyway,
all right. Speaking of the Angels,
yes, we go now into television, and we always start television with the Sports Corner. There's looking less sports every time I point at it. Anyway, this week in the Sports Corner, baseball was on everybody's mind because the World Baseball Classic wrapped up with an epic face-off between the United States and Japan. So yes, everybody was wondering, will we get Shohei Ohtani pitching to Mike Trout in a battle of the MVPs?
And sure enough, the literal end of the game culminated into that exact scenario.
Everybody on Twitter was making the same joke, which was like, wow, the script was written so well. Because it did feel like they wrote it this way.
Yeah.
It was a one-run game. It was literally down to the last at-bat. And it just happened to be Shohei Ohtani against Mike Trout. It was a moment of silence. Everybody was rapt by watching what would happen. It was ridiculous, too, because Ohtani, even though he had difficulties with his fastball for the first two batters, had no problem with it for Mike Trout, sending 200-mile-per-hour heaters right down the center of the plate. Literal bait for Mike Trout. And he swings and misses on both of them.
It's a literal, I'm going to give you my best.
Right.
Come at me, bro. I want you to hit this.
Yeah, Shohei literally come at me, bro, to Trout. And we all saw it happen. And Trout literally swung and missed on both of them because I don't think he was expecting it either. I think that he literally was like, nah, Shohei's not going to give me like something right down. He's not going to give me bait. He probably was set up for off speed. He probably was thinking like, no, he's going to slider. There's no way he's going to give me his meat, And he gave him ham hocks right down the middle.
Yeah.
And he fell for it. And then, of course, once he finally gets that off-speed pitch, Trout's not ready for that either. And he strikes out.
It's the mental chess battle between pitcher and batter.
It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a baseball game.
Yeah, imagine if both those players are on the same team.
But they are.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, anyways.
I wonder if this means that Ohtani will now become a closer instead of an opener.
You know what? I could see him excel there, but there's no way he does it. because Ohtani's the kind of person who is all about endurance. He
Mhm.
wants to play as long as possible. I think he would be pissed if they changed his role and he wasn't able to play most of the game.
Mhm.
I think that he likes that energy of being there as long as he is and building that momentum.
Mhm.
Because if he's proved anything over the last season, he's a momentum guy. He starts out a little shaky and then he gets better and better and better and better until they have to take him out because he's so valuable that they don't want him to hurt himself.
Anyways, yeah, it's a great ending to the
Yeah.
classic.
And
We'll see
congratulations to Japan because we failed to mention they win because of this 3-2, and
And
cap
we'll
off a
see
wonderful
him in
series.
3 years. I guess it's an every 3 year thing.
3 years? Okay.
Yeah. So 2026 is when they're going to play again.
But yeah, just
Wait, is that right? 17.
I
20.
think no.
Yeah, 17, and then 20, and then 2023. Yeah.
So yeah, just an incredible bunch of baseball was played. It seems like most of the games at the classic this year were great to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I heard especially people talking about how dramatic that semifinal was
between Japan and Mexico.
Yeah, Japan and Mexico. Apparently that game was nuts. I didn't
Yes.
get to watch it, unfortunately, but I wish I had. It sounded like that was amazing. And yeah, it was cool also to see Team USA make it that far. A lot of people were wondering, wait, are egos going to clash with all these star players on the same team? They ended up meshing fairly well. And it definitely, I think, quelled those thoughts about, like, what if Ohtani or Trout were on a team full of players that are just as good as them? Turns out they're really good.
Yeah.
In both cases, when they're, when they don't have to carry everybody else. Yeah, I know, frustration, but it was nice. It was a good game, and it was a fun to watch series. So yeah, good times at the World Baseball Classic.
Yep, I've seen several people coming out from different sports saying, like, why didn't we have this?
Right.
Like, this is what our sport's missing. And I've seen that especially from like hockey and football.
Hell, even MLB people were on Twitter saying, like, this is a big argument for a single elimination tournament.
Yeah.
Like, why not try it someday? Like, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a replacement for the playoff schedule, but like as an alternative. There's a reason why those wild card games have been so exciting the last couple of years that they've done them, because that single elimination is on your edge of your seat baseball. And that's what was one of the things that was so exciting about the Classic. It was like, no, this is make it or break it. It's just that baseball is such a weird, wonky game that you could easily argue, like, no, you don't want to do that because of how strange things can get. But then again, the existence of the NFL kind of proves that people love that. Fans love that, because you never know you're going to get. Half of football is just coin flips, as I heard on a podcast recently. It's just like, it doesn't matter because it's not a series of games, it's just one-offs.
Well, even in big MLB, like 60 of the games, you're probably going to win. 60 of the games, you're probably going to lose. It's the other 60 where you determine if you're going to go to the playoffs or not.
Yeah. So, yeah, it depends on what you want from that. But I think the excitement of a single elimination, it was definitely tantalizing.
Yep.
And it makes me wonder if they'd ever try it.
I don't think they would, because baseball is built on series.
Yeah.
And
there's a reason why they do it, though.
There's a reason that they don't throw everyone at each other all at once.
Everyone, everywhere, all at once.
Everyone throwing at each other all at once.
But anyways, enough about baseball, though we will talk about it more next week, as opening day is this coming Thursday.
Yep.
So get excited for your first games of the new season.
So with that, spring training ends this weekend, and we'll have a couple exhibition games.
Yeah.
For your team in their stadium.
Yes, we will have our freeway series here.
Yes, but the official opening day is on Thursday.
I am ready. I am absolutely ready. All right, but other sports are still happening. Meanwhile, in hockey, the NHL playoffs are on the precipice of starting, and the Ducks and Blackhawks have been eliminated. They will not be showing up.
Haha, sucks for you.
Yeah, I know. Gloat about the Ducks. This is your opportunity.
And the Blackhawks.
Yeah, so there you go.
That's why you're here in the news, so I can gloat about you.
Wow. Well,
anyways,
we'll see how long your Kings last.
They're still in second place.
Excited.
The freaking Golden Knights. Oh, side note into here. Speaking of Golden Knights, Jonathan Quick this past week became the number 2 in games won all time for a U.S.-born goalie.
Wow, that's a very specific but cool record to set.
Yeah, he's still got about 30 games left to become number one.
Okay.
Can't do it this season.
No.
So if he plays another season, he might get the record.
Maybe. Let's see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Next up in football, or alternate football, I guess I'll say, the XFL has continued, and the DC Defenders are now the last unbeaten team in the XFL. So just like the NFL, you're on perfect season watch.
Yes, I am. Well, because coming into this week, they were supposed to face off against the Houston Roughnecks, who are also supposed to be undefeated by the time they met. But that didn't happen. They lost last weekend. So now DC Defenders are the last unbeaten team.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Moving on to more Mad March situations.
Yes.
College basketball continues. The Elite Eight is this weekend. All your number one seeds, though, have all been eliminated.
This is the first time in the tournament's history that all number one seeds have been eliminated prior to the Sweet 16.
That's pretty wild.
Or eliminated in the Sweet 16. This is 8 here. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah. So in the Sweet 16, all number one seeds officially eliminated.
All right. So who do you got for your final 4 picks here?
I think originally it was going to be UCLA, but they lost because they blew it. So probably so we have Texas. Sorry, we have Miami playing the winner of Xavier or Texas.
Okay.
San Diego State.
Wow, San Diego State
playing the winner of. Oh wait, no, sorry, that happened last night. Let me refresh this. I'm pretty sure Princeton lost. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So San Diego State will play Creighton.
Okay.
Miami will play Texas. FAU will play Kansas State, and UConn will play Gonzaga. So right now, my favorite, the Gonzaga is now the favorite to win everything.
Man, San Diego State though, that's shocker.
Well, they're number 5 seed, so not that much of a shocker.
But still, I'm just like, I've been there. It's weird.
Yes, it's not that far from here.
Not that far from here. Anyway, so yeah.
So I guess they're the last local team.
Semi-local, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see what happens in that Final Four as we approach this Elite Eight situation right now. We'll see.
Yep. But yeah, March is mad. So of those 4 games that I just listed, they will all be playing today as of this podcast and tomorrow, this weekend. So for the Final Four and the championship game next weekend on April 1st, and then the championship game I think is the following Monday on the 3rd.
All right. Well, look forward to that. And then, that'll do it unless there's anything else in sports we need to talk about.
No.
All right. Well, that'll do it for sports. Oh, wait. Our first television story happens to be a sports story.
Well, there's sports entertainment. We'll talk about that next week.
We'll talk about that next week. Let's move into our first story, though, which is, yes, like I said, a sports story. And it's about baseball on television, but not what you think.
It's not the one that we've been covering.
And we're going to take a break from the Diamond bankruptcy shit for 1 week and instead talk a little bit about Apple TV+. You may remember that last season, Apple TV+ had Friday Night Baseball, which was them choosing games throughout the season to show on Apple TV+, the streaming service. And in high bitrate telecasts with so-so announcing. And it seemed like a pretty cool deal because, hey, you could even watch them if you weren't paying for an Apple TV+ subscription.
This is how a lot of people were able to watch Albert Pujols continue to break his home run streak record at the end of last year because it was that happened specifically on Friday Night Baseball for Apple TV+.
It was a cool thing that they were offering for free. It was neat. Well, no longer. Friday Night Baseball will be returning. Apple announced on Wednesday that only those, though, who subscribe to its subscription can watch this season's games, which starts on April 7th. When Apple first announced Friday Night Baseball last year, the company let everyone watch the games for free and only required that they sign up for an account. However, Apple did hint that it wouldn't stream the games for free forever, has an archived version of Apple's Friday Night Baseball support page notes, quote, for a limited time, you can watch without a subscription. And
that limited time was 1 year.
That line is now absent from the support page that's currently live. Just like last year, Apple will show 2 live baseball games every Friday night, starting with the week of April 7th, the Texas Rangers at the Chicago Cubs, and the San Diego Padres at the Atlanta Braves. The streams will last through June 30th and will be available in 60 countries and regions. The move to make users pay for Friday Night Baseball comes as the service looks to build up Apple TV Plus's offering of live sports. We've already talked about on this podcast their plan is to stream Major League Soccer for the next 10 years, which just started last month. So I'm not super surprised by this. I think the surprise was last year when everybody was like, wait, I don't need to pay for this? And so, now it seems to fall in line with most people's expectations, which is, well, of course I have to pay for this because it's on their specific service. I had to download it anyways. Of course, they're going to make me pony up. I'm not surprised, but it does suck for people who will miss potentially maybe a couple of their games this season because they won't be on their local network.
But if it's not on your local network, you could still get the local broadcast because you don't have to listen to Apple TV's specific broadcast this year. You will have the option to listen to your regional broadcast.
Yeah. If available.
If available.
That's the thing, is because when I noticed with the Angels here, is that Bally would skip the games that were on Apple TV. They would not do a broadcast if they knew it was going to be on the Friday Night Baseball.
That would just save them money.
You're right, it did. But radio always is there. So if you know your local radio station, though, you can always play that instead, which is what I heard a lot of people did last season, is that they would put on the Apple broadcast and listen to their local radio. Like, that's a solution.
Yeah.
It's a neat thing, though, that they do. Like I mentioned, the high bit rate is almost enough for me to recommend just checking it out if you can, because it's just such a pristine, clear picture that you're not going to get any other way. So it's neat. But just know that going in that this season, if you want to watch those games, you're going to have to pay.
Pay $6 a month?
I think it's something like that.
$6.99 a month?
Also, if you have like a recent purchase of an Apple product, generally speaking, they give you trials, pretty lengthy trials of Apple TV Plus.
Isn't it like a 3-month trial?
Yeah, I think so. It used to be a whole year.
Right.
But nowadays, I think it's only that 3 months.
So if you're looking to buy a new Apple item, hey!
Now might be the time if you want to watch some baseball. So there you go.
Yes. Do note that the stream goes through June 30th.
Yeah, not the whole season this year.
Yeah, that's because that is prior to the All-Star break.
So no games after the All-Star break.
Yes.
On Apple. Interesting choice.
No games confirmed yet.
Right, we'll see.
Yes, they may change that deal as we get
closer. Definitely depending on some, some
other shoes
things
to drop.
Right, some pending things that are happening. So we'll see.
Yes.
Speaking of pending things that have not happened for a very long time, hey, remember the NBC show Smash?
The one with Catherine McPhee?
Yeah, Catherine McPhee's own.
Yes.
So Smash, way back when on NBC, was a musical, a moderate hit, you could say. In the wake of Glee, was NBC's attempt at a musical theater themed show. It was, I guess a cult show. I think the people who loved it really, really loved it, and everybody else was baffled by it. Well, at long last, fiction is becoming reality. Smash, a stage musical adaptation of that NBC series itself about a stage musical, is heading to Broadway. Theater veteran Susan Stroman, from the producers, is directing the production with a score by original writers Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman. They've also written Some Like It Hot, the musical, Hairspray, Mary Poppins Returns. Like the television series, the stage version will follow the process of mounting the musical Bombshell about the life of Marilyn Monroe, a fictional musical that exists in the universe of the show. But producers say the Broadway adaptation will, quote, depart liberally from the series. Steven Spielberg, Robert Greenblatt, and Neil Marin, who produced the original series, will all serve as lead producers on the musical. Smash ended back in 2012, and producer Neil Marin says there's not a week that goes by without someone asking when the show will be turned into a musical.
Well, you can stop asking because
it's
next year.
So yeah, so I wish I had a Broadway correspondent, Christy, here to give her take. She loves Smash.
Mm-hmm.
She had me watch the pilot, and I was like, absolutely not. I hated it. It was so bad. But she loves it, and she's very excited for a stage adaptation. Yeah, she's a big fan. So yeah, I'll be really interested to get her take once this actually premieres, and I'm sure to much rejoice and or clamor from Broadway Twitter, and she'll tell me all about it, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sure they will have to take some liberties of it because you can't have the audience come back on a weekly night basis to watch a 1-hour production
really
of Smash.
Make the plot really concise and short, which I'm sure they'll be able to do. I'm curious about how this will shake out.
Well, let's see. If Phantom of the Opera can do a musical about a musical,
well,
about a play, an opera about production, yes, then surely Smash can be a musical about its own stage production.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if it works out for them. All right, let's move on. That's it for television news. We watched some things.
Yes, a couple things on Netflix and one thing on Apple.
Speaking of.
So where do we start?
Let's just do the Apple thing. A good segue here. So if you do have Apple TV Plus, well, before baseball, you can also watch some country music.
Oh, yes.
You forgot something, I see.
Yes, because it's also on Apple TV Plus.
Okay, we'll get there.
For like my final thoughts on it.
Okay. But in the meantime, yes. So I watched the premiere of My Kind of Country, which is the new Apple TV reality singing competition, specifically about country music.
So we talked about this when we reported on it 2 months ago in January?
As a news story when they announced it was happening. So this is brought to us by producers Reese Witherspoon and Casey Musgraves.
Yes.
And it basically has a panel of 3 judges and recruiters, essentially, which are Jimmy Allen, Orville Peck, and Mickey Guyton.
Yes.
And they are all basically picking squads of going across the world, I think, even finding squads of aspiring country music artists and having them voice style compete as teams in a reality competition. So the first 3 episodes are up so far, and they're basically the showcases where each of the hosts basically have their first 5 or their team of 5 that they're presenting, and they have like an introductionary performance in which one is potentially eliminated. And then the following weeks, they will go into like workshops and other kind of like molding kind of things in order to then compete against each other. So the season's just started. So all we have right now are just those first introductory episodes.
Yeah, new episodes every Friday.
Yeah.
But those introductory episodes, you at least get to see the coaches, how they find these talents, how they interact with the talents, and what kind of music like you're going to be expected to listen to.
And you know what? So far, I really, really like it. So I've only watched one of the episodes right now, but the production value is really great. Like, forget everything that you know about reality shows. Apple TV's approach is very intimate, very well shot. Like, all the shots are like right near the people. There's no wides. Like, this is not a multicam situation. This is very much shot documentary style, which adds an intimacy to the performances. The packages are really well produced, so you get to know like a lot about these people and their upbringing and their choice. Also, the choice of songs and like their interest in the genre and how they started, because these are people from across the world. There's somebody from South Africa here. There's somebody from Mexico. There's somebody of Indian descent. There's like a real variety of perspectives and people that are involved in this production so far. And yeah, one of the most striking thing for me, though, is that this is finally a reality singing competition that really cares about the music. There is so much talk and discussion about the craft here. It is not just going for there's a little bit of the, oh, that's so sad kind of stuff that American Idol will give you, but not as much as you'd expect. A lot more time is given to why this song. Let's work with the band. Let's have the band give the artist advice about how to pep up the song. Like, what do they think that will improve their performance going into the performance part? If you are big about music and if you know about a lot about music and have performed yourself, there's a lot of meat to chew into here. There's a lot of real cool discussion about the actual craft of music and performance. Like, oh, let's try like on the modulation, maybe try slowing it down, or hey, let's bring this up a key so your voice like really thrives in it. There's a lot of talk about that. Kind of like when American Idol used to do the mentor weeks. It's like that, but even more like intimate. It's really cool. And again, because it's on Apple TV Plus, you get that real crisp, high bit rate stream. It looks amazing in 4K on my television. It's really, really cool so far. So yeah, very excited to watch more of this. My Kind of Country. I'm curious about what the other. Oh yeah, and everybody's just a total sweetheart. Everybody who's competing on this show just seems like the most genuine, nice people who just genuinely just love the music. There's not a heel yet. I'm waiting for them to only one of the competitors to be an asshole, but it hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
so
we'll talk about heels when we talk about Love Is Blind.
Yes, I'm sure we will. But yeah, I'm really excited to see more of it. It seems like a genuinely well-produced reality show.
So while you're waiting for your weekly doses of My Kind of Country, and while you're waiting for your weekly doses of Ted Lasso, which episode 2, more meat of what the season's going to be about.
Yeah,
I like this episode more, partially because it was actually an hour long instead of a half hour.
Right, really, and it gives you actual soccer for the first time in a while.
Yeah, so actual soccer. And
I was
actual
like, all right,
stakes.
This is where we're going. So yeah, interesting episode. But when you're waiting for that,
yes, you can watch all 10 episodes and binge the entirety of Shrinking.
Yes, also on Apple TV Plus.
Yes, this is talked about this earlier. This is the Jason Segel show with Harrison Ford about a therapist who has problems of his own, but also trying to solve other people's problems. And him trying to shortcut it. But as the show goes, there is no shortcutting to your own solutions. You gotta pick up the shovels. You gotta move forward in your own time. You have to do the work yourself.
Yes.
Much like with Ted Lasso, I didn't think the show actually got going till about 3 or 4 episodes in, when, funny enough, there was a party and they forced all the characters to interact with each other at said party.
That's always smart to do.
They did that in Ted Lasso after like the 3rd episode with the Christmas or the auction episode.
Force it to be an ensemble show. Yeah.
So same thing here. After they did it during, it was like an engagement episode where they had everybody around to interact with each other. That's when the show took off for me. That's when it was more of like, ooh, now I am interested in seeing what happens to all these characters now. Because I did talk about this at the very tail end of January when there's just the first 2 episodes out. I was like, I don't know. I like where they're going, but I'm not like invested enough to watch every week. Now, I think going into season 2, it's becoming a weekly thing. Once season 2 comes back around, because it was announced for season 2, that it will become a weekly thing for us to watch.
Yeah.
It's a grower. It's definitely a grower. It didn't hit me as hard as other Apple TV shows like The After Party, which, by the way, got delayed into a July release now.
No! Oh, well, it's fine.
Where I wanted to watch every week and see what...
It'll be a fun summer show, I think it'll work.
So Shrinking, all 10 episodes are up. You can watch the whole journey. It is... it can be hard-hitting at times.
Okay.
Especially since the whole journey is about 1 year post the loss of his wife.
Okay.
And how do you move from that? How do you move forward from that?
Right.
Not just in your own life with your own daughter, but also like in your career with like your patients and stuff, and your friends and your family.
Okay. All right.
I liked it. I don't know if I'm going to be put it on my list by the end of the year, though. I think there's other stuff that we've talked about that's stronger.
Sure.
But I do like what they did by the time they got to the end. Is the journey itself like worth it by the time you get to the end? Mileage may vary, I could say.
Yeah.
Because you may be like, I can see how this happened, and be like, no, they kind of like wrapped it up because TV purposes. Yeah. I wouldn't be too satisfied with how they ended. But hey, at least we get a season 2.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on Apple TV?
I mean, I guess I'll mention real briefly. It's not something that's super in our demographic, but Christy was interested because it's based on one of the children's book series that she really likes. They have a kid show called Shape Island.
Okay.
It's adorable. It's based on these 3 books that were about different shapes. One's square, one's circle, and one's triangle. And it's about their little misadventures they have on their little island. It's cute. It's good for kids, and we're having a good time. It was our palate cleanser after episodes of Perfect Match while that was running. It was like, we need to watch something that's not that. It's like the polar opposite. And some people who work on some of our favorite shows are in producing roles on that, including Toby Jones, who used to work on OKKO and a regular show.
Okay.
So yeah, it's got some really good staff behind it. It's a well done stop motion animated show. It's cute, and it's on Apple TV Plus. So if you have kids that like those books, it's a great kid show.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, nothing really to mention on there. So we moved to Netflix, where you have watched a couple of shows.
Yes.
Finished one. Right? Love is Blind?
Or no, that just started this
week.
week.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to hop on the train,
no.
That is Love is Blind season 4.
Christy and I already committed that we're not watching Love is Blind because after a Perfect Match, we're like, that show sounds like bullshit.
Love is Blind season 4 premiered last night, and we already went through the first 3 episodes.
Jeez.
To get to all the proposals.
Couldn't be me.
So we stopped right before they went off to Mexico. We'll finish that off, and then new episodes every Friday.
All right.
But Love is Blind is back, and the relationship bullshit that happens in this show, the manipulations, the internet has already dubbed evil stepsisters of the show. With Micah at the center of it all.
Oh no.
Micah, by the way, the girl.
Okay, sure.
Who is causing all of this drama and being very manipulative. And it's like one of those train wrecks that you really shouldn't be watching. And yet here we are yelling at our TV. What are you doing?
See, we can only do one of those, and we're already almost done with The Bachelor. So there's only so much we can handle.
You're already doing that with Bachelor?
The finale is next week.
Okay.
Or the Monday. Yeah. All so, right. Boy. Anyway.
Anyways, yeah. Love is Blind is back. We got a whole new crop of contestants looking to find love, proposing without seeing anybody.
Right.
Talking behind a wall.
That's the gimmick.
That's the gimmick. And the internal turmoil of, well, I like this person, but I also like this person. And, oh boy, woe is me to choose between 2 girls that I don't know who I should propose to.
So sad, I know.
Such a Sophie's choice here. Because if I don't propose to one, I know I'm going to at least see the other person when we go to our honeymoon Mexico vacation.
Awkward.
And then I'll get to see it and be like, did I choose right?
Awkward.
And the answer is always no.
Because it's a grass is always greener thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they always have second thoughts.
Yes.
So stupid.
And so you get to see the inner bickerings amongst these hopeless romantics. More hopeless than romantic.
Yeah, I was going to say. Emphasis on the first part.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, Love is Blind. If you've already been through this, you know what to expect.
If you've been through 3 seasons of it,
you know what you're getting
into. Know why they're going for a 4th season.
Fair enough.
All right. But that wasn't the only thing I watched on Netflix.
Yeah, what is Dance 100?
So, remember how I talked about Physical 100?
Is this related?
No, surprisingly.
So we were looking through Netflix and we saw these next to each other on the queue. And Christy literally was like, wait a minute. And I'm like, no, that's just got to be a coincidence, right? And she's like, well, maybe not. And I'm like, no, this is American produced.
Yes.
This must have nothing to do with it.
They are not.
Okay.
Yes.
It's weird just that they're both Netflix originals.
Physical 100. Well, it says Netflix original because it's
premiering here.
Premiering here, yes. Because you can only watch it in the U.S. on Netflix. That's why it's Netflix original.
Right. But anyway,
Physical 100. So while Physical 100 was a competition to prove who is the strongest out of 100 people,
right?
Dance 100 is a dance competition out of 8 people.
They put 100 dancers and they go to an island and they kill each other, right?
No. It's not physical combat. They're not fight dancing. No, there are 8 dance choreographers who have to choreograph ever increasing groups of people.
Oh, okay.
So they start with 8 choreographers.
It's a reverse battle royale.
And of those 8 choreographers, they each start with 7 people.
Okay.
At the end of the episode, after they've all choreographed, then they get the dancers. The 100 dancers get to choose which choreographer they want to work with.
All 100?
Yes.
Whoa.
So for example, the first episode, there's 56 people that are dancing, 7 for each of the 8. The remaining 44 are up on the balcony watching all these performances, and then
they choose who they join.
They choose who they want to join.
Okay.
And if you don't have enough dancers, or if you're the lowest amount of dancers, you get eliminated.
That's funny.
It kind of is. So, if you like those dance competitions, I'm just waiting for it to like increasingly grow to where this choreographer who's never worked on like a professional production before now has to choreograph 20 people.
Yeah.
Like 28 people.
And more.
100
dancers.
What am I doing? I'm so stressed out. It's a lot of that.
Do you ever feel like they're going to get to the point where there's too many dancers?
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
By the time they get to the end, it's going to be a 50 on 50, 2 people dance.
I would argue that is too many dancers.
I would argue not, because Jason Mendoza had a 64-man dance crew, Dance Revolution.
Forgot about that. Oh my God, what a wonderful show. Yeah, this is a weird concept.
It is.
Dance 100.
But I think it's a fun concept because it's one, it shows off different choreographers from different backgrounds.
Right.
But 2, do those choreographers put themselves in the middle, or do they actually put the best dancer in the center of what their story they want to tell?
Wow.
And there's also different kind of gimmicks in it, like tell like your own personal story through dance. Use this specific type of genre. You must use props in your dance.
Sure.
So there's different like stipulations per routine that they have to kind of meet. But it's the dancers who decide who is the best choreographer or the choreographer they want to work with, rather than a panel of judges.
Right. No, that's cute. I think that's a neat little twist on that formula.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that's Dance 100 on Netflix.
Yep. All episodes, I think, are available on Netflix to watch. There's only 8 episodes, so it's really kind of an hour each. So it's really kind of binge-worthy if you want to do that over a weekend or over 2 days.
All right, cool. Well, any other TV that we need to talk about before we move on?
We are coming into the end of March and into April, which means TV is back for everything.
It'll slowly start springing up.
Yep. 911 had its spring premiere a couple of weeks ago. It's continuing. Other shows will continue to have their, I think, our shows in its current spring season.
And going into the season finales before the summer.
Yeah.
So,
that will be in May. So right now, between now and all through April, is going to get to like your meat of those seasons.
Right. So look forward to that. In the meantime, though, let's go into cancellations and renewals.
What am I no longer watching?
Shows that will or will not be joining us for this second half here. First up, Accused will get a second season on Fox. Alert! Missing Persons Unit will get a second season on Fox as well. The L Word, Generation Q, canceled after 3 seasons on Showtime.
But they did say they wanted to shop it around.
So we'll see.
Don't know who's going to pick it up, though.
We will see. You! Its 5th season will be its last on Netflix.
Yep, so you'll get to see the finale for that on Netflix.
The Final Straw. Well, ABC thought so because it's canceled after 1 season.
I didn't know what this was.
No, I had no idea either. So those are cancellations and renewals. Deaths, we have a couple of them this week. Michael Reeves, age 72, screenwriter, worked on shows such as Gargoyles, Batman the Animated Series, and Spider-Man Unlimited. So
a very 90s scriptwriter.
Yes, very
screenwriter.
And action cartoons of its time.
Yes.
72. Yeah, that's a rough one. The next up, Leroy Raffle, age 96. Not necessarily related to this Media Boat podcast, but in our hearts and our arteries. co-founder of Arby's.
Hey, in our stomachs.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, so thank you for the beef and cheddars over the years.
Oh, and the Wagyu burgers.
Oh, well, yeah.
You not have those Wagyu burgers?
I've not had one.
Put
I mentioned on this podcast I don't eat beef right now, so
yes.
burgers, they got to be Impossible or they got to be Beyond.
It's okay. Arby's also does the fish market stuff too.
That's true. I could have that or chicken sandwiches. Hey, give me a chicken sandwich.
Seasoned curly fries from Arby's are the best.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yes, they are.
All right, let's move on into the last section of the show before I get hungry. Movies, and we always start movies with the weekend box office numbers. Your number one movie, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, premieres to $30 million. Number two, following that, Scream 6 with $17 million, adding to its $75 million domestic total. Number three, Creed 3 with another $15 million. That's at $127. Number four is 65 with another $5.8 million. That's at 22. And rounding out your top five, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania with another $4.2 million. That just crept over the 200 million line with $205 million.
And look at that. Almost all the top five are sequels.
Hey.
Yeah, are sequels.
Well, it's just going to get worse as we tumble towards summer, so
Yes.
just wait for that. Upcoming this week, though, we got a couple of films, two very different films juxtaposed against each other here. Mm-hmm. A Good Person.
This stars Morgan Freeman. I want to say this is Apple produced.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's kind of like a melodrama movie.
Yeah. And then Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, which is your big action movie this week. I don't know about this one.
So there's a sneak preview tomorrow that I might jump in and try and see.
All right.
I'm very weary about this thing.
Yeah, the last time they tried a Dungeons and Dragons movie, it sucked. So we'll see. That's a big we'll see, I think.
It is.
But then, of course, that means we're just another week away from the one everybody's waiting for.
Paint.
No. Oh. Super Mario Brothers. So watch this space. We will, in a couple of weeks, be able to talk about that. I'm excited.
I'm trying to think if we're going to do a Thursday show for that or Friday.
If you do, I might be on board.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
We should do that.
Well, we still have the whole week
because that might be the first movie in a long, long time that I'm actually like, I kind of want to see that when it comes out.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll discuss. But before we do that, though, there's some movie confirmations that we have to talk about. Also for our aging millennial hearts.
Yes. Oh, that's what we did talk about in TV. Aging millennial hearts.
Oh.
For those of you who are keeping track. Pokemon series wrapped up in Japan.
Well, that's the thing is until it wraps up here, we'll shelve that conversation.
Yes.
But they did also, I'm glad you mentioned it, because they did also confirm that this week the U.S. title of the new series will be officially Pokemon Horizons,
right?
Which follows in line with the Journeys branding of the last couple of seasons for the main series. So this will be the new series with the new protagonist. Will be called Horizons. We still do not know how it will be distributed here. They have not confirmed whether this will still be on Netflix. It is interesting, though. All of the footage that they've used so far has been the Japanese dialogue with subtitles, meaning that maybe they're open to that kind of thing. Fingers crossed that we will get a subbed version of this.
A day and date release.
Oh, I can dream, but no, probably not.
Yes.
Because if they haven't said it yet, probably not. Anyways, before that happens, though.
Also, something also happened in the 90s.
Yes. Yes, if you are a millennial like us, you might remember the Nickelodeon movie Good Burger. Well, get ready. Everything old is new again. Good Burger 2 has officially been greenlit at Paramount Plus, with original stars Kenan Thompson and even Kel Mitchell set to return. The sequel to the beloved Nickelodeon film will begin production in May, with plans to debut on Paramount Plus later in 2023.
Oh no, and the screams of everyone who doesn't have Paramount Plus echoed throughout the universe.
Per the official logline of the film, quote, Dexter Reed, played by Kenan Thompson, is down on his luck after another one of his inventions fails. Ed, played by Mitchell, welcomes Dex back to Good Burger with open arms and gives him his old job back. With a new crew working at Good Burger, Dex devises a plan to get back on his feet, but unfortunately puts the fate of Good Burger at risk once again. End quote. This marks the latest Nickelodeon property to get revived at Paramount Plus. The streamer also had the iCarly revival, which has been renewed for a third season recently, as well as the updated version of Rugrats, among many others. So, makes sense. I guess the recently reunited Keenan and Kel means that this was probably something that they wanted to do. I would not be surprised if they were like, yeah, sure, let's talk to Paramount. And they made it happen. Keenan, I'm sure he's a very powerful man right now, and he can just make these things happen now. If Keenan Thompson wants to do something, his years of SNL all point to, just let him do it. Like, he's earned it.
So there has been Good Burger, Keenan and Kel sketches on, was it Jimmy Fallon?
They've done it on Jimmy Fallon. They did it on SNL.
They did it on SNL.
So it was bound to happen at some point. Also, come on, people. Logline should be one sentence. It was bugging me. Anyways, on you professionals, allegedly. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have any nostalgia for Good Burger. I did not see it in theaters, and I also did not watch a whole lot of All That or Keenan and Kel. I'm a weird millennial because of that. Like, we watched the cartoons in my house. We didn't watch the live action stuff.
I did watch a lot of it growing up.
Okay.
I do have fond memories of it. I do find it interesting that they're putting them back at Good Burger at their current age. I wonder if it's something that they're going to comment on. I'm
sure, because that's right. It's the fish out of water, right? Yeah. At this point, it becomes not what it was original premise, which was, these teenagers are bad at their jobs.
Yes.
Now it's the adults are bad at their jobs, and the teenagers are there also, and so there's that clash between them. It'll be interesting. It's an interesting take on that idea.
I wonder if they're going to get into the living wage argument in here.
I wonder, yeah.
Because that'd be a good angle to go to.
It is, yeah. I also imagine maybe as like a good twist on the formula, because of course all that shit was written by jaded Gen Xers. Mm-hmm. You could have the twist now be like, these Zoomers know what they're doing. They're really good at their jobs. They're like making us look bad in contrast. Like I could imagine that being a good like twist. Anyway.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can go with this kind of script.
It's interesting.
But it's going to be on Paramount Plus.
So, you already know whether or not you're going to watch this or not.
Just based on that barrier alone.
Anyway, let's move on. Our second story also involves a couple of people that we recognize from SNL, or at least one. And A24, Media Vote favorite, is bringing us Y2K.
What?
I know, again, we lived this. It's happening again.
Okay.
A dial-up disaster comedy. That's good. Is that you, or is that
That's the thing.
The thing. Okay. To be directed for the studio by Saturday Night Live alum Kyle Mooney.
Yes, recently let go, Kyle Mooney.
I like his stuff. That Saturday morning, whatever the hell thing on Netflix was fun. Did you ever watch that?
Saturday morning.
I forget what it's called. Cartoon Hits or something like that.
Okay.
It was fun. It was a fun little thing. But anyway, the cast has been announced. It will include Jaden Martell from It, West Side Story breakout Rachel Zegler, and Julian Dennison from Deadpool 2. Also included here, Lachlan Watson from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Mason Gooding from Scream 6, rapper The Kid Laroi.
Yeah.
None other than the internet's own Tim Heidecker, Eduardo Franco from Stranger Things, Miles Robbins from Blockers, Alicia Silverstone, haven't read that name in a while, from The Killing of a Sacred Deer, amongst, Clueless and other things.
Yes.
Fred Heckinger from the Fear Street trilogy, and Daniel Zalgadri from Funny Pages. In the film, written by Evan Winter, which is set on New Year's Eve 1999, two high school nobodies, played by Martell and Dennison, decide to crash the last big party before the new millennium. When the clock strikes midnight, the night gets more insane than they could ever have imagined.
So, Y2K, kind of off the rails comedy here.
I am so
party. It was featuring a bunch of people who were like, they're from that thing. They're from that thing. I recognize that person.
This sounds great. I like Kyle Mooney's sensibilities, so I think this could be really funny. It kind of this could be like a better take on something like sort of like, remember what This Is the End was trying to do?
Yeah.
This probably sounds like a better version of that concept, right? Get everybody in a room.
Yeah, but This Is the End was, I want to do this with my
celebrity friends,
so we can all get paid.
So this doesn't even have that baggage. This is just like, let's get a bunch of character actors in a room together and have them react to chaos. That sounds great. I'm on board. Let's do it. So
that will be shooting this year. Probably not coming out this year.
Mhm.
Probably look for spring next year for that.
The Kid Leroy.
The Kid Leroy.
That's funny.
Just randomly in there.
I want the Kid Leroy and Tim Heidecker to have a scene together. Just that's all I want. All right, let's move on. You also have a real small bit here. What is this Marvel drama that you want to bring up?
So, I was reading this morning.
Okay.
It's been going on over the past week, and I was just like, I don't really want to get into it. But I've finally read the article, and it's like, okay, maybe we should talk about this.
Sure.
So Victoria Alonso is one of the big three executives over at Marvel.
Okay.
Right up there with Kevin Feige and Luis Esposito. Like those, like they're considered like the big three to run the Marvel Studios. Victoria Alonso specifically runs the VFX outings.
I see.
For Marvel.
Okay.
So recently, she has been let go at Marvel from word from Disney, who owns Marvel.
It's because they lost the Oscar to Avatar?
No, because she. But funny enough, you bring the Oscars up.
Yeah.
Because she was a producer on Argentina 1985.
Interesting. Okay.
But according to her contract for working at Marvel, she's not allowed to work for a different studio.
Okay.
Because Argentina 1985 was produced by Amazon and distributed by Amazon, they feel that she's
out of line there.
Out of line and been diverting her resources. So they've let her go.
Interesting. Okay.
Also pointing out that when she did walk the red carpet, it wasn't for Black Panther, which was nominated for several Oscars. It
was for Argentina 1985. Right.
She's also been out promoting Argentina 1985, doing different junkets and panels for it.
Okay.
As a producer on the film. So interesting to note, I mean, it's not interesting, but it's specific to note that she is from that era. She is
she from Argentina?
Argentina.
Okay.
From she is a gay woman in Marvel, in Disney's hierarchy chain.
Right.
And this also kind of plays into what's going on with Florida with Disney.
Okay.
Also, the film Argentina 1985 was about a mass exodus of homosexuality in Argentina during that year.
So I guess the question then is, where's this coming from legitimately from Disney's perspective? Was this just purely a business decision where they were like, oh, well, you
broke contract,
so we have to let you go? Or is there people that are conspiracy hatting here and basically saying, oh, was this, there were other like personal reasons why they wanted to let her go, and this is basically the way they could do it.
Hey, we can do this now because you've broken contract. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of drama in there.
Yeah.
None of it is settled. None of the dust is settled.
Okay.
But it's something that did happen over the past week. I think it is a big story.
Yeah,
but it's also something that doesn't really have a conclusion.
It's almost like we're waiting for that shoe to drop where like legal stuff happens.
Yes, because I'm pretty sure legal stuff will happen.
Like if she files for like wrongful termination or something, I could see that happening.
Yeah. Okay. But right now they outed her because she produced a film and supported a film that was not under the Disney umbrella.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll keep an eye out.
But just because they say that doesn't mean there's all this other stuff that's happening alongside of it.
There's no way of knowing for sure.
Yes.
Unless you're like a fly on the wall. Man, Disney Wars 2 is going to be so good. It's just Bob versus Bob. And like, oh man, I can't wait. What's that guy doing? What is he writing? What has he been writing lately? He's got to get on this shit. I want to read that book already. There's so much juicy shit from the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
Anyways. Well, hopefully that'll come together.
I'll keep an eye on this, but one of the big threes at Marvel Studios is out as of this past week under what could be considered dubious circumstances. But we won't know the full extent probably until like she's most likely going to sue. I don't see why she wouldn't at this point.
Oh yeah, it makes sense, but we'll see.
But we will see on a different episode of
Watch
the Podcast.
This space for that. But in the meantime, we are wrapped up today. That's it for movies. We do not have a fan question.
No.
So that means it is time to wrap up for this week. Thank you for joining us for the Media Boat Podcast. We, of course, will be back next week for another live show. Watch us on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Media Boat Podcast, and there you can find our page, our channel, to be more specific. You can like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications when we go live, typically on Saturday mornings like this. You can also listen to us in audio podcast form on podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Wherever you listen to podcasts, just search Media Boat Podcast and find us there. As we mentioned earlier in the show, something else you can get on that podcast feed is our ongoing March Madness 2023 bracket special, which is currently in progress.
It's coming up to its finale. This upcoming Wednesday will be the finale where we take our Sweet 16 songs and crown one song as the Taylor Swift champion.
Yes, so what we're doing is the Taylor Swift Eras Tournament, and we are taking every song off of each of her albums, rating them, and determining 16 of them to go into a bracket to, yes, as you said, determine one song to rule them all. So yes, we are done with going through each of the albums. Those were played out in our first 4 parts that you can listen to now.
Because you are in the future.
Yes, the final bracket is created. It's just a matter of seeding it and choosing a winner. So that will be this Tuesday on our podcast feed. Wednesday on our podcast feed. We'll be recording it on Tuesday. And yes, that'll be up. So you'll see what we think is the best Taylor Swift song ever. In the meantime, though, you can also find us on social media. On Twitter, we're at MediaBoatCast. Facebook, search Media Boat Podcast to find us there. MediaBoatPodcast.com is our website where you can see write-ups for all of these things and more, as well as recent thoughts that we've had about your thoughts about The Last of Us Season 1, as well as the wrap-up of Peacock's Poker Face, which we also wrote up for us. More stuff will be coming soon, so keep your eyes peeled. And then last but definitely not least, every once in a while we play video games on Twitch, on twitch.tv/MediaBoat. Stay tuned this week as I will likely be streaming some Resident Evil 4. Mike just streamed some Tchia.
I'll be streaming some more Tchia on Monday.
Yep. And I'll probably jump into some baseball, stream some MLB The Show 23 for you, maybe on Thursday this week. So Tuesday, hopefully, will be Resident Evil 4. When do you want to do Tchia? Monday?
Tchia will do Monday.
So Monday, look forward to Tchia. And then, the show will be penciled in for Thursday. So stay tuned for all of that and more. I might swap that if Resident Evil comes late.
Yes.
Which is possible. So thank you for joining us this week. We'll be back next week for more. Stay tuned for a big show. We'll be back next week.
We'll be back with more news, more thoughts. The end of March next week.
Yes, wild. We'll be in April very soon.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll be in April next week.
Yeah.
So
our April 1st, April Fool's episode next week. So
yes.
Will everything we tell you be true? Yes.
Oh, no, we're not going to do
we're not going to pull any pranks on you.
No. Right. Or will we? You'll have to tune in next week.
No, we won't. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. I mean, we could. We could dress up and do something goofy.
No.
Goofy.
We're always goofy. That's all right.